Welcome to Weather to Watch. Here's what I'm watching, and you can tell by overlapping circles and different colors where the trouble is. This is a combination of severe weather threats and heavy rain threats that will be impacting the central U.S. starting this weekend and going well into early next week. I'm meteorologist Ted Keller. Let's get started with the details. A quick check of the lower 48 reveals a pretty quiet weather pattern. The most active areas are here in the northern plains and down in Florida and maybe a little bit of South Texas too. Otherwise, pretty quiet for now. We'll take a look at the 500 millibar flow overlaid on top of that. This is used a lot in meteorology. It's steering currents. It's a good compromise between the real jet stream level, which is higher, and the surface features like low pressure areas, fronts, that sort of thing. So it does show a pretty intense little cutoff low there moving through southern Canada and through North Dakota. And also we have a little disturbance in the upper atmosphere moving through Florida, and we have flow coming in off, at the surface at least, off the Atlantic. So that's going to lead to some rain issues. We'll talk about that in just a sec. At the surface, we have an occluded front. That's where the cold front and the warm front cross. Cold front catches up to the warm front. We have an occlusion back here. And when a low at the surface is pretty much underneath the upper level low, that means it is pretty well occluded and probably producing a lot of rain. Let's check that. And in fact, the radar loop does show rain. All rain as far as I can tell. I didn't see any snow reports here. Maybe a crackle of thunder with some of this stuff here. And this is a trailing cold front down here. And that feature is what's going to lead to the initial severe weather threats for tonight, I should say, and tomorrow. And then we'll get into the bigger threats here now. So for the remainder of this evening and overnight, there is a very slight risk. Actually, slight risk is 2. This is marginal risk is the actual name for it, 1 out of 5, for basically western Kansas, central Kansas for tonight. Now, during the afternoon hours, the Storm Prediction Center for Thursday did put a level 2 out for places like Salina and Manhattan, almost to Topeka and just south of Lincoln. So right there in northeast Kansas, southeast portions of Nebraska, right to around St. Joe, level 2. Some supercells could form in there. There is a very low-grade tornado risk with that, too. I believe they put out a 2% for that. The following day, on Friday, we just have this area east-west right along the Oklahoma-Kansas border. It does extend into southwest Missouri and northwest Arkansas, and again, it does represent the lowest risk of severe weather, and that's basically along a stalled out front. Hail, I think, would be the main call card. And I did want to show you this, though. I won't go into all the details of this, but this is a progressive severe weather risk situation. So here's Saturday, here's Sunday, Monday, a lot of real estate on that one, and then Tuesday the whole system kind of sags off to the southeast. So I do have a special video I produce on that called Severe Thunderstorm Outlooks. If you want to look for that on my YouTube channel, that'll explain a lot of this in a little bit more detail. Well, let's see what the rain threats are. First of all, I talked about Florida, and you can kind of see we have actually a severe thunderstorm warning and also some pretty heavy rain possible in parts of Florida. As a matter of fact, there is a marginal to slight risk of the flash flood warning guidance being met all along from Palm Bay down to West Palm Beach, down to Miami for the remainder of tonight. Then, after that system starts leaving the area, we turn our attention to the Great Plains, where we have some heavy rain hazards, one on Saturday here, intimately connected to the severe weather threats. And then on Sunday through Tuesday, this entire area here is under gun. So southern Missouri, Arkansas, parts of Oklahoma down to Dallas under the heavy rain threat. If I sum up the next 6 days for you, you can see we got pretty much a really good band of rain from Kansas City to Milwaukee, back into the lower peninsula of Michigan. So if you see that red color, that's the 2-inch line right there. And then if you see any yellows in there, like a couple of those are on Milwaukee, maybe around Grand Rapids, you got a 4-inch total possible. And that's over a 6-day period. But I will tell you that leans very, very much toward the last 3 of that 6 days. Also some pretty good rain down there along the Red River area of Oklahoma and Texas. And you can see the Florida rain there and some rains in the west. And this is all snow in the Sierra Nevada, and there could be some heavy snow with that. I did want to just show you one map. This is the Tuesday through Wednesday period. So this is days 6 and 7 as far as the Weather Service is concerned. So there's that heavy rain threat up through northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin, and into Michigan for way out for next week. But it's not the only rain pattern we have. We have several repeating rain patterns. And in fact, if we go Tuesday through Saturday and look at the, I should say 6 to 10 day outlook. We do have a heavy area of high confidence of rain in Texas, but this whole corridor here is going to light up with not just one, but several rounds of precipitation in this period. So this is after what I just showed you, so it's going to be pretty wet. Well, for the pattern change, this is the EPS issued late last night. This is a mean 500 millibar, averaged over all the ensembles, and then averaged over an entire week. That started yesterday. So then we have this general, again, concept of a trough in the west and kind of a warm pattern here in the central U.S., although this isn't really technically much of a ridge. These actual lines are higher than they normally are, but it's not really a ridge. So if you translate that to surface temperatures, there is a slightly above normal area on average through here. But the west is really going to be, at least to start the period, going to be contributing heavily to this before the pattern finally changes. South Texas, this is rain and cloud cover, and this is still an intrusion or two of high pressure into the northern plains. Precipitation anomalies, very interesting. There's a very, very tight distinction between the Tennessee River Valley, which will see a real drought of precipitation, and a conveyor belt, if you will, of rainfall that kind of goes up through there like that. This pattern has, if you watch this video over the last week or so, you've noticed that something shaped like this has shown up quite a bit and will continue to do so. In fact, when I show you the 2-week outlook, that's enhanced even more. On Thursday, temperatures are going to be a little cool in the northern plains with the area around Fargo, a high of only 40, and Minneapolis, St. Paul, 50. The East Coast will be cool. Miami will be cool for them, 78 degrees, and Tallahassee at just looks like 79 degrees there. But much of the country, that's the yellow-orange color, is above normal. Does that change much? We go to Saturday? Not really. We still have cool air that starts here and shifts into the northeast. Rain is what's causing Florida to be slightly below normal, if you will, and then we can start to see the infringement of those rains and thunderstorms in Texas, and then we're starting to see a little bit of a sign of some changes in the jet stream Saturday, which is even more pronounced when we go to Monday, 2 days later, where we have all the Rockies states and even parts of the Dakotas, again, below normal, whereas the warm temperatures are going to swell northward into Wisconsin, Michigan, where the highs around Green Bay will be 72 degrees. Same for Minneapolis, St. Paul, 77 in Chicago, also 77 in Pittsburgh, and in the 80s through much of Missouri and all points south. And the confidence level for above normal temperatures for Tuesday through Saturday is pretty high in the southeast. And only a few little Arctic Canadian air masses are trying to wedge their way into the extreme northern plains still, but generally not having a whole lot of impact on the temperature pattern. So we go one more week ahead. So this is the average of the 7 days starting this coming Monday, the 13th. We still have this area of trough out in the western U.S., troughiness, is that a word? And then ridging in the east, that's going to lead to warmer temperatures just about everywhere except, again, the extreme northern plains. The epicenter of the ridge is out here, and it's pretty obvious where that is. And remember, I was talking about that precipitation. Again, we have this flow that starts in Texas and goes to the Great Lakes, and although it's shifted around a little bit, we've had this happen at least once, if not twice already in April, and this will happen at least 2 more times, if not more. And finally, when we look at the rain hazard that goes way out from the 16th through the 18th of April, we do have this band from Texas straight up into Arkansas, including southern Missouri, including places like Memphis, Oklahoma City, Little Rock, Springfield, Missouri, almost to St. Louis. And then certainly Dallas and probably Waco would be included in that as well. Thanks for watching this edition of Weather to Watch. It comes out every other day, or as the weather necessitates. Please remember to share this with your friends, subscribe to the channel, or at the very least, like what you just watched. Thanks.